Disaster in the Heartland tonight, a special edition of Central Coast News more than 24 hours after the brunt of the storm, and these heart-wrenching photos are coming into our newsroom showing the aftermath of that massive tornado that ripped through Moore, Oklahoma, killing at least 24 people, including several children. The monster storm destroying everything in its path.
Well, right now, a live look at the damage. This is rescue crews continue searching for survivors and victims of this tragedy. Today, the tornado was upgraded to an F5 from an F4. Now, the level of devastation is just astounding, and locally I've heard people describing what they've seen in these videos and the pictures as looking something like a war zone. I'm Jazz, this is Mark.
And we should mention these storms aren't even over yet, with several other states still under a tornado warning as we speak. President Obama has declared a major disaster in Oklahoma. And on that note, aid from all over the United States is rushing to the region to give any help they can. The 200-mile-per-hour winds took down businesses, homes, even schools. And here on the Central Coast, many of you have reached out to us asking, how can you help the victims?
Well, today we originally planned to have a question center related to the Center for Investigative Action series on veterans issues. Well, we're still going to have that later on this week, but in light of what happened in Oklahoma, the question center is a help center here tonight. So members of the local Red Cross chapters, they are here in studio to answer your questions about how you can help, and they're going to make sure your donations make it to the right place. Call the number there at the bottom of your screen.
Now, as the hours go by, we are learning more information on the death toll, the amount of damage, and the rescue efforts.
We want to go live to Moore, Oklahoma, and that's where reporter Adriana Diaz is on scene. Adriana.
The tornado that tore through this part of Moore, Oklahoma has been declared an EF5 level tornado. That is the highest level, with winds of at least 200 miles per hour. Rescuers will keep searching the ruins of buildings and homes until every person is accounted for in the tornado-ravaged town of Moore, Oklahoma. Ashley Bursch was inside Briarwood Elementary School when a wall collapsed on her and her 6th grade classmates.
Everybody started crying, and I started crying because I didn't know if I was going to make it or not.
Plaza Towers Elementary School took a direct hit. At least 7 children were killed there.
There will be enormous grief that has to be absorbed, but you will not travel that path alone.
An emergency official says hundreds of Oklahoma schools have reinforced tornado shelters, but the 2 that were hit yesterday did not. People whose homes are now piles of rubble spent the day trying to salvage whatever belongings they could. They carted away property in suitcases. One man used a hole in his collapsed roof to carry boxes of items out of his home. Muddied and mangled cars litter a neighborhood where homes once stood. This stairway used to lead into a house here on Southwest 6th Street. It looks like the kitchen was just over there. And this house was just one of about 20 homes that was completely wiped out on this block alone. The tornado was packing 200-mile-per-hour winds when it carved a path of destruction nearly 2 miles wide and 20 miles long. The marquee of a damaged IMAX movie theater no longer lists film titles. It only says, "Please pray." The medical examiner's office here in the state of Oklahoma has announced that all of 2 of the deceased have been identified. Live in Moore, Oklahoma, Adriana Diaz. Now back to you.
All right, Adriana, thanks for that. Absolutely heartbreaking. As mentioned, the storms aren't over yet. More could be on the way for Oklahoma, along with Arkansas, Texas, and Louisiana.
Now, most of the Midwest bracing for round 2. Our chief meteorologist, Norm Hoffman, been monitoring these developing storms all day, even last night. So, Norm, what can we expect?
Well, we're taking a look at some of these tornadoes, and as we take a look at the graphics, you can still see some activity here moving into Arkansas, southeast Texas, and as well into northwest Oklahoma. But the question really is, what is the recipe that makes these tornadoes work? Well, we've got a lot of watches out along that frontal system, but it is the cool, dry air that comes in from the backside, mixing with the warm, moist air coming up ahead of it, which develops these tornadoes in the Midwest. This is the perfect spot, and more tornadoes form in the eastern portion of our country country than anywhere else in the world. But why not on the West Coast? On the West Coast, we have the cool but moist air coming in off the Pacific. We're missing the warm, moist air that comes up from the Gulf that we don't have here on the Central Coast. Therefore, we don't get the tornadic activity. We may have smaller tornadoes, but not like they do in the Midwest. Now, Brianna Berman-Solo is joining me here in the Weather Center. Brianna, the tornadoes was first defined as an EF4, right, but after the Weather Service got out there, it was defined as an EF5. And there are differences between those two categories. Tell us.
That's right, Norm. Anyone who experienced yesterday's tornado that ripped through Oklahoma are using terms like massive, incredible, and monster. The devastation is mind-boggling, and the National Weather Service said, according to its record keeping, very rare.
Absolutely terrible. This tornado is massive.
Storm watchers say this Oklahoma tornado spread destruction like a 2-mile wide lawnmower blade yesterday. The U.S. averages 1,200 tornadoes per year, but storms of this size with 200+ per hour winds are very rare. In 1971, Dr. Theodore Fujita introduced the F scale. It's a way to categorize each tornado by intensity and area.
Look at all of that stuff. That's a house in the air.
The F scale was later modified and renamed EF for Enhanced Fujita. EF1 causes weak or moderate damage with wind gusts between 86 and 109 miles per hour. But get up to an EF4 tornado, that causes devastating damage, capable of leveling well-constructed homes and tossing cars in the air like large missiles. An EF5 is capable of causing incredible damage, with wind speeds above 200 miles per hour. Weather Decision Technologies shows a look at the path of yesterday's tornado compared to the F5 that struck the same city of Moore, Oklahoma in 1999. Winds were recorded at nearly 300 miles per hour from a nearby Doppler on wheels. The National Weather Service said it's very unusual for two such powerful tornadoes to not only track roughly the same path, but happen a mere 14 years apart.
And that was Brianna Berman-Solo reporting. Less than 1% of all tornadoes reach category of EF5. Of course, we don't have major twisters here on the Central Coast, but we do have earthquakes.
That's right. And no matter what the disaster, though, we need to be prepared. Our Ricardo Navarro explains how you can be ready.
You can't predict a disaster, but you can prepare for it. And according to a Gallup poll, 44% of Americans say they aren't ready for one. That's why the American Red Cross says get a kit, make a plan, and be informed. The kit should have a first aid kit, water, a flashlight, enough supplies for up to 3 days.
Be aware of what your natural disasters are and what could happen.
On the Central Coast, that's earthquakes, fires, and floods. Know what to do during these disasters.
Talk to your family about where you're going to meet.
Now, food preparedness is extremely important during these natural disasters, and the Department of Homeland Security actually lists some of the essentials that you should have. So I'm going to do some shopping to show you what they recommend you have. So one of the first recommendations it lists is to buy ready-to-eat canned meats, fruits, or vegetables simply because they can last a lot longer. And the list also recommends getting high-energy foods like peanut butter, granola bars, trail mix. And lastly, instant meals are highly recommended, so meals such as these cups of noodles. But the American Red Cross said at the very least, sit down and talk to your family.
Communication is key.
I'm Ricardo Navarro, your Central Coast News.
And we do have our own earthquake tracker app, so you can be prepared. You can download it under our website under the Weather app.
So one of our sister stations in Spokane, Washington, KHQ, they sent a news crew overnight to Moore, Oklahoma.
That's right. Alex Rozier just got on scene less than an hour ago.
And Alex, we do want to mention for our viewers, your signal might be a little spotty at times because of that cell phone reception, and that's actually a problem for many people.
We left Spokane at 2 a.m. Pacific time. We flew to Seattle, then to Dallas, and drove up. And you can see even a couple miles from the tornado that this is just some of the debris that got in the way of what was a 17-mile tear through town and more. I want to show you a lot over here. That's the media parking lot, one of many. It's attracted the attention of worldwide media here this week. And on the other side of this parking lot, in a Target parking lot, you've got first responders. You've got FEMA from several neighboring states. You've got the Army National Guard, the Air Force. You've got police officers from really every police department you can imagine in the state of Oklahoma. They are here. They are helping, along with Americans from coast to coast tonight. And I did have the chance to speak with one man from the Army National Guard just minutes ago, and I asked him a little bit about the tear through town, and he said it started over there in the west. It's made its way east. We're about a mile from that school that they've been talking about since this storm hit. We're going to have continuing coverage throughout the week, live from Moore, Oklahoma. I'm Alex Rozier. We'll send it back to you.
All right, Alex, thanks for that. You know, tough to see right there on the ground. Our coverage of the Heartland disaster continues at our help center. We have Red Cross volunteers in studio as we speak, taking your phone calls. We do have some lines open. Your donations, of course, can help those victims from the storm in Oklahoma. Call the number listed right there at the bottom of your screen. It says American Red Cross and has the phone number. Those phone lines closing at 5:30 this evening. Meantime, Oklahoma officials, they hope to finish rescue efforts by nightfall. Meanwhile, crews are using special technology to find survivors. Our very own Christian Heartland explains that technology is made right here on the Central Coast.
Easy to distinguish between the surrounding background, much as you would be trying to search for a missing person in a pile of rubble.
Bill Terry is holding a thermal imaging camera as it detects his assistant. Terry is the vice president and GM for FLIR Systems, which specializes in thermal imaging technology. The cameras detect heat radiation and can see things that the naked eye can't.
Well, thermal imaging can be very effective in the cases of seeking humans or animals in places which are not really accessible by humans.
Which makes them very useful in rescue missions. These pictures show the thermal images of a stranded hiker found through the help of a camera like this. The wreckage in Oklahoma left rescue crews searching for survivors under the debris, many of them using the same technology.
A camera like this one right here can be bought by anyone looking for it online. A camera like this small one right here is used in more specialized applications like military use, and in the case of Oklahoma, searching through rubble.
And these cameras were deployed on extension poles, and in some cases were able to find people which would otherwise not have been found.
In rescue missions like in Oklahoma, acting quickly is essential, and efficiency can be the difference between life and death.
Well, the hope is that you can identify where someone would be in a specific location as opposed to digging up the pile piece by piece, which you don't really know where you're looking.
Christian Heartland, your Central Coast News.
And I do want to mention here, I just got word from our help center as we have Red Cross volunteers standing by taking your phone calls. A $2,000 donation just came in, so thank you for that. Meanwhile, people across the world have reached out to the tornado victims and their families all through social media. Central Coast News reporter Chloe Beardsley has their messages.
Messages of hope are all over the internet. After the devastating twister hit, thousands of people started to share their pictures of the destruction through Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram, where over 100,000 pictures have already been shared. Some were messages of hope for victims and their families, messages sharing thoughts and prayers, and special moments like a hug of relief in a time of tragedy. Celebrities from the political and entertainment worlds are also reaching out to those affected by the disaster. Sites like the American Red Cross and Salvation Army have also been posting updates on the conditions in Oklahoma, along with messages letting people know how to donate online.
The most popular hashtags people have been using to share their thoughts and their photos since the storm hit have been hashtag Oklahoma and hashtag Pray for Oklahoma. I'm Chloe Beardsley, your Central Coast News.
And a reminder, our phone lines with the American Red Cross open until 5:30 tonight. We'll be right back.